Right. So I think that's also good to go. So thanks for joining us again, everyone, for episode 4 of our Powered by Positive series. Really appreciate you all taking some time at lunch to listen to what we've got to say, and hope that it can give you some inspiration along the way. So today is all about how business can be a catalyst for change. How can you use business for good to benefit our organizations, the communities we live in, and potentially, with everything that's happening in the world, shape a better future for the future generations that come after us. So it's a step to create a future that we'd like to live in ourselves. As we've seen David Attenborough's documentary of the planet getting worse and worse, and now's the chance that we've got, and it feels like a huge moment in history to change things. And business is such a big part of the damage that's happening to the world. So today we're going to speak about how you can use business for good and how we can rethink how business works to make the world a better place. So we will get started with the first slide. So using business for good, why? As I was just saying, the world's become such a bad place, and there's massive division. We're really creating a lot of bad emissions, and I think there's a real chance to use business to turn that around. And if we can be better as organizations, we can really do a great job. And we've seen loads of businesses recently, like Brewdog, for example. They're doing huge amounts of work to be a completely different type of business. They've just bought a massive piece of land in Scotland, and they're net zero now as a business. And I think they had like a funny advertising campaign recently because the British government cancelled one of the environmental conferences. So Brewdog have decided to put on their own environmental causes, which I think is really cool. So we're starting to see real businesses, big businesses do things like this, and it's really nice to see, because they're going to be the ones that have huge impact, as well as us as a small business collective. What can we do better? So in terms of being a small business then, leading with purpose. So how can we use business for good? And I think leading with purpose is a massive part of that. And actually, instead of measuring our businesses on financials, let's think about how we can measure them on social change, cultural change, environmental goals, alongside the financial goals, of course. That's important, but I think that's something that we really feel passionate about, don't we?
Yeah, I think as businesses, I think we tend to think of them as, money-making machines, and of course they do benefit like our customers and things, but I think businesses also have a huge impact on the world around us in so many other ways. And it's like we've got a real opportunity right now to actually stop and think, okay, what is the impact we're having, and what kind of impact do we want to have? Because at the end of the day, we do make more of an impact than just helping the people that we serve.
Yeah, and Becca at Vero Recruitment up in Aberdeen, really good business, just started recently, and she wrote a blog called "It's Nothing Personal, It's Just Business," and she was in that speaking about conscious capitalism and just being a bit more aware of, yes, business is good, businesses like making money, but sometimes it's how you think about what you do with that money, and how you lead as a business differently. And she mentions in it the quote that I think is quite a bad phrase, and she says it in her piece as well, and it's "nice guys finish last." And I think that's something that really needs to change in the world, because if it's nice guys finish last, then that's what is causing all these issues in the end. And actually, if we're better as human beings with each other and with communities and giving back, then hopefully it's the nice guys finish first, because I think that's really important. I think in terms of these businesses and these initiatives, we've got a few we'll cover, but one of the big ones recently, and a lot of businesses have been signing up for it, is B corporations, and that's kind of all centered around their why. And we as a business looked at it, and it's about committing to the triple bottom line: people, planet, and profit. And I think it's something that more businesses need to do and think about as well. And that triple bottom line is a really interesting thing. You've done a little bit of research into B corporations and what it takes to apply to be a B corporation. And it's quite a difficult process. You go through a lot of screening, but I think in the end, it's worth it for a lot of businesses.
Yeah, it's quite a rigorous process, but essentially it's committing to that triple bottom line, like Andy said, of people, profit, and planet. And thinking about what are those other impacts that we have. How can we design businesses that actually benefit the planet and give back to our communities and are centered around social good? And I think that's all deeply rooted in purpose, and that kind of underpins everything you can do as an organization and everything you can achieve. So I think it's not to be like underestimated, like how important it is to help us use businesses to drive that change.
Yeah, and we've seen businesses like Patagonia as like a really good example of businesses that are doing these they've always been a leader in terms of leading with purpose and vision, and the business has grown massively as a result of it, because they've managed to bring a huge amount of people that really agree with what they do. They feel the same why as what Patagonia's why is, which is really interesting. Another one of the initiatives people have been signing up is 1% for the planet. And that's another really good initiative that you can sign up for as a business. Again, it's going through certain criteria, but it's one of those things where you're committing to 1% of your turnover and donating it to good causes to better the earth. The other kind of thing we'll go over just now then is that you can actually also come up with your own initiative as well. That's kind of what we've done with Powered by Positive. We're just about to make our first donation as well, which is really nice, to Dundee Bairns, where we live, to help support young kids where we live, because it's quite a huge amount of food poverty where we live, which isn't a really nice thing. And as businesses, we could turn a blind eye to this stuff and just expect our taxes and stuff to pay for it, but in reality that's not going to create the change that needs to happen. So we need to get involved as a business and as a profit-making company to redistribute our profits into our local community and help people. We've also just brought in our first female startup founder, so we're going to be supporting her for the first year with all of her accounting needs as well as strategy, business, investment. So that's a really nice thing to be able to do for someone and help them with that support to get started. And she's from our local community as well, which is really nice. In terms of using business for good, it's something that you need to get everyone on board for, and vitalising your team is a massive part of that. It's all about kind of peer-to-peer inspiration as well. That can really be a driver for it. One thing that we'd really recommend, and we've kind of both been through this process recently, is the Find Your Why book by Simon Sinek. Not only does it take you through finding your why as an individual, but it also can take you through as a group project, and it'll take you through the entire process of coming up with finding out what your organization's why is and why you do what you do. And it can just give everyone a real tie-in together and give everyone that mission that they need to push them on to keep going with the journey. Some questions to kind of ask your team as part of that. What is our impact as an organization? What's our impact on the world? What do we do for people? And also, what did the contributions of our organization allow others to go on to do or be? And these are some really great questions to ask your team, and post-it note them up on a wall somewhere and then look at them together. And it can give everyone that nice feeling of this is what we do and this is why we do it. And it can be a really lovely thing. And I think vitalising your team is a massive part of that, isn't it, Becca?
Absolutely. I think having everyone on board with that really clear vision is probably one of the most powerful things you can do to actually drive that change. Because if you've got a group of people that are so dedicated to making a difference and they're all working together towards that same thing, then there's kind of no limits to what you can achieve and how much impact you can create. And I think when everyone has clarity around that goal, it's really special.
So next up is building your culture. Cultures aren't created in boardrooms. It's just who we are as business owners and who we are as people. You know, you've genuinely got to want to do this stuff. I think too many times you'll have a business that's got a brand, but then it won't do certain things that agree with that brand and those values and that mission. And there's misalignment there. And I think culture is just the heart of this, that it's, you know, this is why we're speaking about business for good, because it's within our culture to change and be better for our local communities. And I think that's a really nice thing to be able to do.
Yeah, I think business itself is to make change and to transform and to make the world a better place. So I think that having that culture that underpins business itself is really important, because our organizations can be quite powerful drivers of change if we want them to be. Especially
when we're combining it with, you know, that kind of great marketing piece and using storytelling to find people and bring them into your journey. I think that's a really nice thing to be able to do. And I think it's like quite a few questions then. So, you know, what makes us different from other organizations? What binds us together as a team? What do we believe in? What do we want to achieve? And I think you were saying it earlier, culture is the glue that brings all of this together. And it's massively important to get buy-in from everyone. Yeah. I think that's kind of the one thing that underpins it all is who you are, essentially. And that forms such a big part of what you can go on to do and the kind of futures that we can kind of build together. Thank you. So next up, we've got innovating your business model. So I think a big part of this is actually as part of business for good, there potentially is some redesign you need to do of your business. Because maybe you're not doing things in the best way, or maybe you want to be more environmentally friendly with your business. And actually, instead of having normal vans, we're going to get in electric vehicles. And these are massive things. Like, I know Brewdog have just ordered a few thousand vans, electric vans, to completely change what they do and be that really good business that's good for the planet and people. Mm-hmm. And I think these are really inspiring things to see. And I think it's going back to the business model canvas is a really good tool, isn't it? Yeah, it is. It's a good tool for innovating and seeing areas where you could potentially innovate. And there's also the social business model canvas, which is kind of based off the first initial canvas that helps you kind of design a business that generates social impact as well. So it takes into account a host of other factors rather than just your traditional revenue streams, and it's got lots of different value propositions embedded within it. So those can be really useful tools. And I think what things like 1% for the planet and B corporations, I think what they're essentially doing is helping us design business models that benefit people and planet. And I think this is where innovation can come in. We can rethink our business models to kind of step away from just having them as profit-making organizations to organizations that generate social and environmental value alongside financial value. So I think like a quite an important question we can ask ourselves is not how much money we can make as organizations, but how many benefits can we generate from this business model. Those benefits don't have to be financial, they could be social, they could be environmental, they could benefit our communities, they could benefit our customers. There's so much scope for imagination and rethinking there when we kind of just turn that one question on its head. Yeah, thank you so much for that. So donut economics is something that we think everyone should read into, and it was originally created by Kate Rayworth, and I think she's got some really good talks on YouTube about it, and I know, Becca, you've read into quite a lot of it, so I'll let you go on this one. But this is just a potentially it's a great idea, potentially the massive solution for a lot of the stuff we've been talking about. And I'll let Becca go into a little bit more detail about it. Yeah, so it's essentially something that can help us create impact as businesses. So donut economics, it's basically a set of core principles
for creating economies that are regenerative and distributed by design, created by an Oxford economist called Kate Raworth. And the diagram you can see here, it's essentially a framework for creating an economy that meets the needs of all people within the means of the living planet. So the center in the middle there depicts the proportion of people that lack access to life's essentials. So that's things like healthcare, education, equity, and then the crust on the outside represents the ecological ceilings that life depends on, and things we can't overshoot. And when we do overshoot them, we get things like climate change, ocean acidification, and things that we're experiencing right now. And the problem with that is that our current model is unsustainable. And what Kate Raworth is basically arguing is that we can overshoot Earth's capacity and go beyond the limits of this ceiling. And when we do that, we're leading to huge shifts in the environment and the depletion of like our ozone layer, air pollution, land conversion, and all these other problems. And our current model is also leaving a lot of people outside of the donut. So they're left without the basic needs that we need to survive, like water and food and healthcare. So the goal is to essentially get everybody back inside the donut and keep them there. And to do that within the means of our planet without overshooting those boundaries. So in this model, an economy is actually considered prosperous when all of the social foundations are met without overshooting any of these ecological ceilings. And I think what's so lovely about this model is that it essentially sums up everything we've been talking about with people and planet, and making sure those things are in perfect harmony, because I think right now they're really not. And the path that we're on at the moment is there's a massive overshoot of all of these ecological things, and then a massive shortfall of all these social foundations. And as businesses, we can actually do something about it. It's not just an economic model, it's something we can actively embed within our organizations. And if we go back to that question of not how much money we can generate from our enterprises, but how many benefits we can generate, we can start to use things like the donut to use business to drive change. So we could even, for example, we could borrow from a model like peer production, which we see in the likes of Wikipedia, Project Gutenberg, Etsy, and even in like open source software, where individuals are collaborating and cooperating to produce goods and services, and then sharing their findings and research with the wider community. And by doing things like that, we can help to implement the donut within our business models and build enterprises that are regenerative and distributed by design, and models that actually help to make the donut a reality.
Yeah, and the good thing as well is that it's in the shape of a donut.
Yeah.
And everyone loves a donut.
So to do that, we can use the Donut Economics Action Lab. So this is essentially an online platform. It's full of tools to help us use the donut within business. You can access it at doughnuteconomics.org, where you'll find loads of tools, insights, stories that help you measure your impact, and it can help you create change at an organizational level, but also at a societal level. It's also a really nice place to connect with other members of the community they have there, and learn from businesses that are actually on that journey to achieving the donut.
And I think what a lot of this stuff with the donut economics and why it's so important is because we're at, it does feel like we're at that pivotal point where, you know, we need to build a better future. And I think coronavirus has been that thing for us to say and step back and say, like, you know, was it really working? Like, or were we all just on this path of like fast-paced, not really concentrating on what you're doing and not having awareness of what you're doing, and as humans wrecking our own planet, and you know, for the future of humankind, how can we create a better business structure and business economy that more focuses on the donut, for example? And I just think it's a great idea. I think as part of that, creating kind of the regenerative futures is really important as well. And I think as businesses, we have to be the change, and we have to be the ones that start and get this going. Because if we don't, then who else will? It does feel like a bit at the moment, and I think there's a lot of pressure on big businesses to change and be better, and you just have to hope that a lot of it's not just marketing campaigns, and there's genuine need and want to do these things from these companies. I want to give a bit of a shout out to Social Good Connect. They're a really cool startup from Dundee, which is where we are based, and it's a great initiative for you and your team to get involved with, or just on your own. What they do is they help connect charities with businesses and employees for you to volunteer with them. But, you know, instead of just turning up and painting the walls, you're actually going in to do things that you specialize in. So, for example, we're an accountancy business. We might go in and help a charity with getting onto Zero, for example, and helping them migrate themselves onto technology and use software, for example. Take it from offline into online, and I think it's a really cool platform to be involved with. So if anyone's interested, just search up Social Good Connect, and Caroline McKenna is just a fantastic entrepreneur as well, really social entrepreneur, fantastic business. And we did a podcast with Caroline as well on our Never Settle last season, and it was just a great conversation to hear her passion about why she does what she does. And I'd highly recommend it to everyone that's on this.
I think Caroline's also on that journey to becoming a B corporation, I believe, as well. So I think Social Good Connect they're really leading the way in helping businesses create change, and they're definitely someone you should look into.
Yeah, so I think just to kind of round up what we've been talking about today, so I think the main thing is that, you know, let's become organizations who inspire change. Let's be those people. You were listening to a really good Seth Godin webinar. It was on Monday, was it last week?
I think it was last week.
Yeah.
It was with the RSA, so the Royal Society of Arts, and it was Seth Godin talking about making work that matters. It was a really good webinar, and they have them on, I think it's every week on RSA, and they're free to tune into on YouTube just over lunchtime. And Seth mentioned something that really kind of stuck with me. And I think in terms of making impact, it's all about looking at the right metrics. So let's measure ourselves on how one person you impacted then went on to impact other people. Like it seems like quite small to focus on just impacting one person, but that one person can then go on and impact someone else who impacts someone else, and creates a ripple effect of change. So even change on a small scale can kind of ripple out into something bigger. And it's not always about easy metrics either. It's about looking at the right ones and focusing on the depth of our impact rather than the breadth, and thinking not how many people are you helping, but how much are you helping one individual person. And that's something that really kind of stuck with me after that webinar. I think we can, in terms of creating change, we can kind of be obsessed with focusing on breadth rather than depth. But sometimes I think having a deeper impact on one person can be so much more powerful than just small impacts on others, because that's the way we can really go and create change that ripples out into something bigger.
Thank you very much, Becca. Thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. Coming over the next few weeks with Powered by Positive, we've got a few other people booked in to come and be guests on our show, and we're going to cover some really interesting topics. Things like universal basic income, and just putting ideas out there and sharing ideas with really interesting people. We're also working potentially on a Powered by Positive partner program, so you'd be able to put on events yourself and share ideas that you love too. We've also got a few ideas for having a few creative cafes as well in the morning. We're not obviously able to do them in person at the moment, but we also realise a lot of people that are on this call are all across the UK. So we just like to open up a Zoom, for example, where we're not presenting, but everyone's participating, and we can just have a discussion in the morning over coffee and breakfast, which would be a lovely thing to do. So thanks so much for joining us today. If anyone's got any questions about what we've spoken about today, please pop them in the chat bar just now. And hope that you'll join us over the next couple of weeks as well. But we'll stop the recording here. But if anyone's got any questions, then please pop them into the chat below, and we'll get those answered. See you next time.